Welcome back to UnderPlayed. Today we are going to be playing Pilgrim. This is a walking simulator game from Tonguc. I believe I am probably butchering the pronunciation of that name and I apologize for it, but let's see what we have in store for us today. It's a nice refreshing vista here. There we go, we have control, we can look around. Beautiful skyline there, look around, and there's our car. I guess that was the unmistakable of tires on gravel and a car door. So we've driven out here into the wilderness. We're gonna start walking. Seems like there's only one way to go, it's down. We have discovered our sprint function.
I like to go for long walks. Walks that cleanse the lungs and cleanse the spirit. This walk, though, has particular meaning for me, and it's a pilgrimage I make every year at this time.
So we can glean from that we are a British man who enjoys going on walks, or not necessarily enjoys, I'd say it is more of a pilgrimage. That would make sense, as the title of the game is in fact Pilgrim. Won't expect us to be going on a pilgrimage, a journey of sorts. What a lovely little landscape there. So that little Splinter Cell high frequency noise that you're hearing there is actually my screenshot function. All of Tonguc games tend to be really beautiful. They have a lot of great scenery in them. I love taking my time as I walk through, and whenever I find a particularly resonant vista, I like to take a screenshot of that. So you'll occasionally hear a little because I'm using the Steam screenshot function. I will be muting that in future playthroughs, but for now I suppose it adds a little bit of a, I don't know, a spy vibe to a walking simulator game. As I said, we do have really beautiful landscapes here, really relaxing piano music. There's another one of those little vistas that just, I don't know, it resonates with me for some reason. So, I really enjoy Tonguc's games. He's, I believe his first game was Drizzle Path. He's got several of these types of walking simulators out on Steam right now. I believe this is possibly his 8th or 9th. I'm not totally sure on the number count there. But they're delightful little affairs. Obviously, pretty much a one-man team. I believe he does have some help with some of the writing and the localization. But as far as the actual development goes, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a one-man band. And it's quite impressive what he's able to accomplish. It's been fantastic to be able to watch his work evolve and grow, right? Drizzle Path, I fell in love with immediately. I just love the environment. It was very surreal and beautiful to walk through, very relaxing. Obviously, that's what you're looking for in most walking simulators. It's a genre wherein you're looking more for an experience.
I can remember every detail of my wife's appearance, even though she's been gone for nearly 10 years. I remember how her cheekbones would rise when she smiled. I remember her long, raven black hair flowing down her back like a shiny waterfall. I also remember how she looked without hair.
Now we're starting to get some backstory here. So we're starting to unearth what actually is going on. Why is this man taking this pilgrimage? It definitely sounds like, it's in memory of his wife, who we can glean from that little tidbit. Probably got sick. Probably was a cancer victim. So starting out on kind of a sad note, but we'll see where the game goes. Now here we're finding these, they look to me like, I don't know, melons or possibly a sack full of something. I believe the game actually refers to them as nuts, or not nuts, seeds, perhaps. Quite huge, either way, nuts or seeds. Let's back up here. Really like that view. That's very nice. So most of the time when you're playing a walking simulator, you're getting more of an experience, more of a chance for thoughtfulness, maybe meditation in a certain way. It's more about just exploring the environment and kind of taking it in unencumbered of any gameplay challenges, as it were. Now, what's especially interesting about this environment is I'm not sure where it's supposed to be at. And in fact, a lot of Tonguc's games have these very surreal environments that are just a little bit off, right? They're not something you'd see in the real world. So as you see here, we're looking at these thatched roofed cottages up on stilts. It looks like something you would find in maybe Vietnam? I'm not sure about that. it seems out of place, you know, in what we presume is a relatively modern setting. They clearly have, you know, cars, and they can drive out here, so you'd assume roads. So it's not 100% clear where exactly we are. Something else you'll notice is the geography, right? We actually have palm trees in the middle of these forests, right? These forests with deciduous trees. It's not something you find. Oh, look, a piggy. Hello, Mr. Pig. Oh, look at that. It actually reacts to us. So it's a pretty simplistic interaction here as we chase the pig around. You know, little piggy. It'll actually kind of push us back if we run into it. It's not much, but it does provide a little bit of interactivity, which is nice. And speaking of nice, look at this little waterfall here. How pretty. So yeah, there's a sense that this world that we're walking through isn't actually a real place, right? We're seeing a mismatch of botany.
She was still beautiful, and she could still smile, but not as often as she used to. The sickness came and went quickly enough, but when it went, it took her with it. I was only 31 years old at the time. She, 33. Our daughter, Emily, had only recently turned 6.
So once again, we're fleshing out more of the backstory here. This is a narrative technique that was probably really popularized in games like BioShock, right? Where you kind of arrive in the middle of a situation, in media res as it were, and you piece together what's happening through little voiceovers. Oh, look, another one of those seeds. Well, don't mind if I do. Hope no one was planning on eating these. And what do we have here? We have 2 more pigs. Okay. The pigs are a nice touch. I like them. Especially looking at this game as an evolution of Tongik's previous work. Drizzle Path was a very straightforward walking simulator. It was just pretty much just all you had was terrain. You just had you walked across a mountain landscape. And it was beautiful, and I loved it. But there wasn't really much in the way of interactivity and essentially no gameplay elements. Here, we're seeing some of the environment react to us. That's what, you know, the pigs running around is. It's nice, kind of brings a little bit more life into the world. And we also have some light gameplay elements in the form of these seeds that we keep on finding. You know, it gives us something to actually look for as opposed to just walking around. Now, we can't climb this ladder, it seems, which is a bit misleading. And if I were to lodge criticisms at any of Tongik's work, sometimes it may be a little bit unclear about the rules of the world and the limits to what you are actually capable of doing, right? You may find ladders that look like you should be able to climb them, but you can't. You know, doors that look like you should be able to open them, but you can't. That sort of thing. It's kind of hard in walking simulators that are presented this way to fully communicate to the player, A, their objectives, and B, what their agency is, what they can actually do in the world. You don't have the benefit of like a tutorial level that says, oh, you know, press C to crouch, press B to sprint or whatever.
It's hard enough for a parent to raise a young child on their own, doubly so when the child is of the opposite gender. Yet that's precisely the predicament I found myself in when Cassandra died.
So you can gather that the story starts off from a place of loss, right? Now the voice acting, it's perfectly fine. It's definitely serviceable. It doesn't sound like the protagonist is really distraught as they're recounting this. It sounds like they might be telling you the story over a cup of tea, you know? Now that could just be a factor of the voice direction, like maybe that's not the intention for that to come across so relaxed. But if it is intended, it contributes to that kind of surreal air of the game, right? That we're discussing these really dark and heavy subjects, such as the loss of the wife.
By all means, both sets of grandparents did their best to help out, but my pride dictated that I could only ask so much of them. I needed to prove to everyone, not least of all myself, that I could do this. I had no desire to be the all but absent father that my own had been, and endeavored to spend as much time as I could caring for my daughter in the most direct way possible. I won't deny that the odd drink came in handy during this early period, but it was yet to become a problem.
Now that's very interesting. That kind of gives us a clue. Again, we're unpacking more and more of this backstory with each of these little audio snippets. He mentions the odd drink, and I believe that does have significance. You know, the game is called Pilgrim. It's a sequel to a game just called Bottle. which, if memory serves, I did play that. I don't quite remember the story as well. I think it had to do with a fisherman who lost his wife, possibly due to a drinking problem. It sounds like that may be a recurrent theme in this particular series, right? We're unpacking the concept of loss, and usually with some kind of tie to possible alcoholism as well. What do you know? We found another little seed. So these obviously aren't like super well hidden. We're not solving any puzzles or anything to unlock secret areas. It's just a choice to go left instead of right, you know? But I think that having those very minor light gameplay elements can serve a purpose in walking simulators. I'd said earlier that a lot of times you play a walking simulator to experience a world or an environment or an atmosphere or just thoughtfulness unencumbered by game mechanics. But paradoxically, you know, if the game mechanics aren't frustrating, it can be a way to sort of give your mind something else to focus on, something else to kind of apply yourself to. And a lot of times that's where really unique insights come from, right? When you're sitting there, you're trying to find a missing seed, or you're trying to unlock a hidden door or something like that, and something just clicks, you know? A lot of times it's good to give your mind a different direction to look in. And those little optional seeds and gameplay challenges do an excellent job of that. Well, isn't this idyllic? Of course, as the piano music comes in, and I was not expecting that. I actually thought that we would have a little invisible wall there keeping us from jumping off. That's actually rather refreshing. Now, it does appear that we cannot swim, even though that water to me looks like it's only about a foot deep. Maybe it was more about the fall rather than actually hitting the water. But you can see we actually have a failure state in this game, which is interesting.
Much greater challenges in the early days were the ones that people would think almost trivial. Ensuring my daughter was safe when she used public restrooms and that she cleaned herself properly when she was in the bathtub. Responsibilities that would normally fall upon the female parent when there is one. Emily was still very young at the time, of course, but old enough to feel awkward that her father was checking in on her during her more private moments. There's no denying that the presence of a woman would have alleviated much of the burden cast suddenly upon both of our lives.
So now it seems that the story is moving past, it's not so much about the man grieving for his wife, right, but more about the challenges of raising his daughter and the aftermath. If I had to guess, we're going to probably run into some conflict in regards to maybe his drinking problem. Maybe he doesn't handle his parenting responsibilities as well as he would like to, but hopefully we'll find some redemption for this fellow. Here we have some more sheds, aluminum sheds. Again, pretty out of place in this forest, and it's never entirely clear how much of that may be due to, you know, the fact that it is a small one-person indie game, or how much of it is meant to evoke a sense of otherness or out-of-placeness. Like, that might actually be part of the story that Tongik's trying to tell here. It's pretty fantastic to be living in a time where you can see these really beautiful environments on such a small budget, right? Now, he is using a lot of open source assets, and you'll notice a lot of assets are repeated, right? You might see the same 3 or 4 palm trees.
It's not like I didn't try to meet other women after Cassandra's passing. I even went on the odd date, but... well, between my teaching job and my responsibilities as a single parent, it was hard to not only find the time, but to find someone to babysit for the evening, without calling upon the goodwill of the grandparents yet again. Most of all, though, it was impossible to find someone to fill the yawning void that Cassandra had left in her wake.
But even with the clear budget restrictions and the reuse of assets, I believe that Tongik does a great job of using them and creating them in an artistic setting. You know, it's really a kind of the traditional role of a movie director, right? You're not the one that's actually shooting the camera. You're not the one that's recording sound. You are kind of assembling all of those elements together and putting them in a particular order that reveals your artistic vision. I think he does a very good job of that. Oh, what do we have here? A radio for which we are missing batteries. Well, how convenient.
I never asked you to be alone, my sweet. You'd have had my blessing if you had found someone else. All I would have asked is that she be a good mother to Emily.
Okay. Now we're starting to see more of these supernatural elements. Ooh. Felt almost like a little X-Files sting there, right? Doodly 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 doo doo doo. Now we're seeing ghosts walking around, getting messages from our dead wife on the radio. Plot is indeed thickening, isn't it? It's interesting to think, though, that this game, I mean, it looks incredible, especially if you compare it to something, from 10 years ago. Like, if we compare this particular forest to maybe the forest from Metal Gear Solid 3, it's absurd that this came from one person, using open source assets as opposed to an entire studio. And it's really exciting to be living in a time where we can explore these kinds of environments. We can have these sorts of experiences, even on a shoestring budget.